Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. We will get into one of the most interesting, most storied, most useful plants in all of recorded history in just a few minutes. We're working through my book, The Medicinal Shrubs and Woody Vines, and of course among those is going to be grapes. Wild grapes, cultivated grapes, but especially the wild grapes. Obviously, I usually record the show on a Sunday afternoon. And right now, America is at war with Iran. And I would be remiss if I did not offer my sincere condolences to the 3 American soldiers and the 9 Israelis and I think they said 200 or 300 Iranians who have been killed so far. I certainly have always been pro-Persian. Okay, I'll put it that way. Every single Persian person I've ever met has been respectful, nice, kind, intelligent, wonderful historical culture. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago on the show that like one of my earliest memories is when the Shah took over Iran, when the Islamic Republic took over Iran and enslaved and subjugated the Iranian people, the Persian people. Constant source of trouble for the world since. Someone asked me an interesting question the other day, and I didn't answer in writing because I wanted to think about it a little bit. One of the listeners to my show is apparently a self-identified Palestinian and asked if I was pro-Palestine. And I could not answer that question. When it comes down to it, I'm neither pro-Palestine nor pro-Israel, nor anti-Palestine nor anti-Israel. I am on the side of people who want to live in peace and treat each other with respect. And, as an American, as a Catholic, obviously Israel is usually on the side of America. Palestine is generally not. Palestine does tend to be more friendly, I would say, to the Catholic Church than Israel. But for 1,500 years or so, Catholics, Muslims, and Jews pretty much got along. Okay. The Palestinian state did not exist until Rome destroyed Israel, put the people who had before them been called Philistines into the position and named it Palestine. Palestinia, actually. So you asked me, am I on the side of Palestine? Well, Palestine doesn't actually exist, okay? There's no such thing as a Palestinian people. There are people whose ancestors were among the Philistines who generally come from Jordan and Egypt to an extent, mostly Jordan. Do they have an ancestral right to the land that was called Palestine by Rome? No, absolutely not. Does Israel, modern day Israel, have a God-given right to the land that was called Palestine by the Romans? Again, no. I'm sorry. Israel was destroyed about 80 AD. Gone. Dispersed throughout the world. The Israel of the Bible is not the secular government of Israel today. Who has a right to that land? Well, I guess whoever can hold it. And in that part of the world, it means holding it by force. My old friend Kinky Friedman, who I was just reminded of yesterday, walked into a liquor store and pick up some vodka to make tinctures. And a guy who works there is a friend of mine. And there just happened to be a beam of sunlight come through a window and hit a bottle of Jameson Irish whiskey just perfectly. And I said, I can't see that without thinking of Kinky Friedman. If you read his mystery novels, that was the beverage he was always drinking. It would be Jameson or it would be Bushmills. In real life, he was not as discriminating as he was in his mystery novels. Kinky Friedman was Groucho Marx in a cowboy hat. And he made the statement one time that area of the world, the Middle East, is so covered with rocks. Now, actually, it could have been Tom Robbins who said this. I think Kinky said it as well. In fact, I know he did, at least more than once. But he could have gotten it from Tom Robbins, who is actually from my hometown of Blowing Rock, North Carolina. I've known the Robbins, and I mean, I've been a fan of, some very odd people for a long time. But he said, the first thing you're going to do in that area of the world, you got a problem with somebody, is pick up a rock and hit them with it or throw it at them, right? That part of the world has been fought over for thousands of years. There has been very, very few times of relative peace in the area we would now call Israel or Palestine, neither of which is a legitimate title, both of which are historical titles taken by people who are no longer the same peoples who once occupied that land, each of whom have a legitimate right to live there in peace. And for a good 1,000 years, when the Catholic Church controlled that area of the world, people did pretty much live in peace. For a while there, first maybe 5 centuries of Christianity, Christians tried to go there in pilgrimage, and at first the Muslims in the area were very welcoming. They liked their money and they liked to show them around, and generally Muslims are pretty nice people. And then an element surfaced, which was, I'd have to look up the name of the Pope that actually sent out this message. Christians who were going on pilgrimage to the Holy Land were being mercilessly slaughtered and tortured in the most horrific ways you can possibly imagine, and taken as slaves. And the Pope put out a message saying, okay, Christians, you got to put aside your differences between countries, between England and France and Germany and all that, and join together and fight the Crusades and bring peace to this area. And when they did, Israel, Palestine, Jerusalem, whatever you want to call it, the Middle East, was in relative peace until the last of the Christian fortresses fell. Then it went back to being in relative peace because, again, the Berbers and such, pretty, easy to get along with people. Everything was really doing pretty well, and there was no Israeli state. There was no Jerusalem, okay? There were a few Jews that still lived there, predominantly Muslim and Catholic at that point. Everybody was getting along pretty darn well until the Muslim Brotherhood was established. Now, the Muslim Brotherhood is a quasi-religious organization. This is where I get into the murkiness of this topic. Essentially, it's a communist revolutionary group. The Muslim Brotherhood was certainly behind the Islamic Revolution in Iran. Most Iranians wanted nothing to do with this, okay? You cannot look at the Persian people and blame them for the Islamic regime. You can't even say that the Islamic Republic is really all that Islamic. It's essentially a communist dictatorship, brutal and ruthless, enslaved and has done horrible things to its own people, sponsored terrorism throughout the world. That is a result of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is now designated a terrorist organization. For years, American politicians like George Bush and such were afraid to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization, even though it is. It's essentially communist at its core. It allied very strongly with the Nazis in World War II. You may remember Hitler kept talking about the Aryan race. That's the same root word as Iranian. The Muslim Brotherhood was very much allied with the Nazis, very much allied with the Soviet Union, has been very much allied with Communist China, has been very much behind Hamas and Hezbollah. And so you ask me, do I support Palestine? Well, one, I'm not really sure there's such a thing as Palestine. There's certainly no nation that is called Palestine, and there really hasn't been for a very long time. Again, that's taken from Palestinia, which was a Roman translation, essentially of Philistines, which was only named that to be an insult to the Jews when they destroyed Israel. So, am I an ally of Palestine? Well, the government of Palestine has been entirely in bed with the Muslim Brotherhood and a terrorist organization from day one, and has also done horrible things to its people. Am I an ally of the people that would be called Palestinians? Absolutely. Yeah. Whose government has basically enslaved them, kept them poor, killed them at will, strapped bombs to children, and done horrible things. Okay? Hamas is absolutely horrible. Arafat was Arafat made hundreds of millions of dollars while his people starved and sponsored terrorism wherever he could. He was a really, really bad guy. Okay? Yasser Arafat probably roasting in hell with the Ayatollah right now. I don't wish hell on anybody, but let's just say Arafat and the Ayatollah probably roasting in hell right now. If there's any justice, and it's up to God whether there's justice or not. That's not my say. The people, absolutely. I've known some very, very good people from that very same neighborhood. Went to school with some. Good, solid people. I've known wonderful people from Egypt. One of my best friends, Muslim from Egypt. And, we talk this stuff all the time. Nobody gets insulted. We just say, hey, this is, my reading of history. This is my understanding. This is my opinion. And his, reading of history is pretty darn similar, actually. But we disagree on certain points of religion and culture and all that. And we have enough respect for each other to argue. We also have a shared love of food. And, the two of us can talk. His family owns a restaurant. And, I told you, I've told you this story before, I should say. It was not long after 9/11, the terrorist attack in the United States by, Islamic radicals, probably in coordination with some aspects of our own government. I'm not going to get into that. But, people were a little freaked out about Muslims with guns at the time. And my buddy from Egypt, whose family fled Egypt because they did not want to be under an Islamic rule, which Sharia law. He hates Sharia law. It's Sharia law is horrible. While liberals in the United States, political left liberals in the United States, are advocating for Islamic Sharia law, the people of Iran are doing their best to get out from under it. My buddy Mustafa and his family got the hell out of Egypt, because they wanted to be able to drink a beer and the women show their faces. I mean, anyway. So my buddy Mustafa, he doesn't eat pork. He's a religious Muslim. And I have a huge amount of respect for that, even though, I don't agree at all. I love bacon. I eat probably 10 pounds of pork a month on a bare minimum, actually. I'm probably closer to 20 pounds of pork a month. I'm from North Carolina. I'm Southern. That's what we do. We eat pork chops. We eat pork loins. We eat hams. We eat sausages. He said, I love the smell of bacon. He said, I just love it. I want this so bad and I can't have it. He said, every now and then I sneak a little bit and I feel so bad about it. And, I'm like, I totally got it. I got Jewish friends that have the same issue. Here's what we figured out. And it's true. If you listen to my show very much, I've had many, many very good Jewish friends. Kinky Friedman being one of them. His girlfriend's secretary was one of the great loves of my life. She was an Israeli Jew from Tel Aviv. I've dealt with these dietary issues before. I said, have you tried duck and goose? And he's like, yeah, I did have roast duck one time. And he said, yeah, absolutely, that could substitute. I said, well, especially if it's cured and smoked like bacon, you would not be able to tell the difference. So I put a shotgun in an Egyptian Muslim's hand and took him out duck hunting. I taught him how to duck hunt and goose hunt, and it changed his life, and he was thrilled. So I don't have biases against people as groups. I have very strong biases against people as individuals. And I will tell you, again, Yasser Arafat, Ayatollah Khomeini, if there's any justice in the world, they're burning in hell. Saddam Hussein, put him in that category. What's his name from, the guy with all the pock marks in his face from Libya or whatever. Horrible. Golly, Pete, the Bedouins are some of the best people on earth, and he was not, okay, by any stretch of the imagination. But, as individuals, I take people as they are. As groups, I don't make broad generalizations. That's all I'm saying. So, person likes my show, I like the person. I'm good with that. Am I pro-Palestinian? Not really. Am I pro-Israel? Yeah, not really. I am on the side of whomever sides with the United States and whoever sides with the Catholic Church. The United States and the Catholic Church are not always on the same side. In that case, I have my political beliefs and I have my religious beliefs. But am I going to blanket say I support any nation? No. I don't always agree with America. I certainly disagree with Canada most times. Certainly disagree with Mexico. I have an extreme love for the Mexican people and the Canadian people. I, again, have dated Mexican girls and Canadian girls, and I have had many friends on those sides of the border. I am Irish predominantly by heritage. I absolutely hate what Ireland has become. Ireland has become an absolute ghetto of violence and rape, and so is England, and so is Norway. I can go down the list. Spain has become a ghetto as the Middle East and Africa have essentially emptied their prisons into Europe. The same thing they were doing into the United States before Donald Trump took over. I oppose illegal immigration for any country. You enter a country by permission. You ask permission and you enter. As a refugee, if they have a refugee program, you say, I have a legitimate reason to be a refugee. You go into that country and you abide by their laws. If you don't like their laws, don't go into that country. There's a reason I don't live in Mexico, okay? I love Mexican food and culture. Oaxaca would be like, or I don't know, Tegucigalpa, but definitely, something like that. Tegus, as they call it. That would be like my ideal of paradise. I do not live in Mexico. Why do I not live in Mexico? The government is incredibly corrupt. The cartels run things. I am not willing to enter Mexico and abide by their cultural standards and law. Be nice to visit. I'm not going to visit it until they clean things up. I mean, a lot of people like to go to Cancun on vacation. Not me. No. I will not enter Mexico and spend money in Mexico because I'm not willing to live under the rules of being a Mexican. Why is it people think people from Mexico can come into America and refuse to live under our rules? They don't even allow illegal immigration in Mexico. You enter Mexico illegally, you're going to jail, at best. Okay? No, I don't agree with illegal immigration whatsoever. It has nothing to do with race. Again, another one of my favorite places on earth would be Nova Scotia. Another girl I had a relationship with was a fantastic fiddle player from Nova Scotia. I'm not going to go up to Canada and pay taxes that support abortion and gay stuff. That's not me. I'm Catholic. I am going to live in a country, at least, where I can choose to live morally as best I can. I can't do that in Ireland anymore. Ireland has become a complete socialist hellhole. Canada has become a complete socialist hellhole. Mexico has been since Pancho Villa. I mean, Mexico essentially had a Marxist revolution, and nobody talks about it. Nicaragua, I mean, what a beautiful country. Absolutely not. Brazil, another beautiful country. Colombia, beautiful country. No way in hell. Because they are a socialist communist government that engage in evil. China. I mean, I would love to live in China. Wonderful people, incredible culture, incredible food, beautiful mountains that are just like the mountains in North Carolina. No way so long as they're under the Chinese Communist Party. I would not spend one penny with them. If I have an option to buy a product made in America or Mexico, I'll buy it over something made in China. Unfortunately, we don't often have that option. But I wish I didn't have to spend a penny with China. I want the Chinese Communist Party to crumble and fall and die. I feel the same way about the Islamic Republic. I feel the same way about Hamas. I'm not thrilled with Israel, but at least they're on our side 9 times out of 10. Now, our interests do not always align. And, I think Donald Trump made the right choice when it came to the issue of Gaza. He said, no, I'm not going to let you kill all the people in Gaza or force them out of here. You're going to treat them humanely. Hamas is going to give the hostages back. We will side with whoever is willing to live in peace and leave other people alone. That is actually my guiding principle. You want to know what people from Appalachia live by, our like main thing? Leave me the hell alone, and I will leave you the hell alone. Infringe on me, and I will kill you. That's the Appalachian ethic. Set foot on my property, you're going to get shot. Threaten my family, you're going to get shot. Threaten me, I'm going to beat you up. I may not shoot you, but I'm going to beat you up. I carry a knife and, I carry a pistol, and that's the bottom line. When it comes to politics, leave me alone. I'll leave you alone. When it comes to property rights, leave me alone. I'll leave you alone. When it comes to religious issues and culture, leave me alone, and I'll leave you alone. And then we can get along just fine. I mean, that's the way I grew up in eastern North Carolina, where I was, a minority as a white person, mostly around black and Indian folks. Treat each other with respect. Don't push each other around. Leave me alone. I'll leave you alone. Be friendly to me. I'm friendly to you. That's the way I grew up in the mountains with, hillbillies and Cherokees. Leave me alone. I'll leave you alone. Be nice to me. I'll be nice to you. That's the way. That's really all we're asking for in life. If you have any sense, okay? Now, if you don't understand this, if you're a Yankee and you think, well, what I need to do is go down and enforce my ideology on somebody else. Yeah, that's what people from up north have been doing. Okay, I'm making a joke, actually. But no, seriously. English could certainly be put in that category. The English go everywhere they go in the world. They tell people what to do and how to do it and to do it their way. And, that's the English way. Now, that I'm not making a joke there. That actually is like the English ethic. I am superior, and I'm going to tell you how to do things. That's what the English do wherever they go, right? I want you to just go watch, like, I'm going to call it the second best movie ever made. The best movie ever made is, of course, Casablanca. Casablanca is beautiful and brilliant and just, hits all the right points. And, what does it mean to be an American? You're Rick in Casablanca. You're going to fight for what's right, and you're going to stay neutral sometimes, and, you're going to be a little shady sometimes. When it comes down to the crunch, you're going to stand up for what's right. Casablanca has wonderful music. It has wonderful scenery. It's Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman, and it's, Then get The Outlaw Josie Wales with Clint Eastwood. If you want to understand the mentality of a Southerner, get The Outlaw Josie Wales. There's the classic scene when he encounters, who was it? Geronimo? Probably was, actually. Crazy Horse? I can't remember. I'm just blanking, and I should know this. It's like I've only seen the movie 100 times or more. And he's basically the Union killed his wife and children, and so he went on a vendetta against the Union as a Confederate soldier. War ends. His troop is supposed to enter into signing terms of surrender to the Union. Instead, they do. They sign terms of surrender. The Union turns their Gatling guns on him and kills every man and boy. He survives. While he wants to take revenge on the people who killed his wife and children and the men he served with, and this is actually based on historical fact. I mean, this is really the way things happened in the Civil War. He's gotten to the point where he just really wants to be left alone. And so he goes out to Texas, and he finds a little bit of property, an old house that some people he was traveling with, their son had. It's in Indian territory. And so I guess Geronimo probably comes up to him and says, I can kill you all right now. And he's already captured two of them. He's got them buried up to their neck in the sand. And it's like, why should I let you live? And he said, because all we want is to be left alone. We've seen enough killing. We've seen enough violence. We don't want it. We don't want to hurt you. We don't want you to hurt us. All we want is to be left alone. And that literally is the Southern and especially Appalachian ethic. Our ancestors came here, mine from Ireland, where the British have been killing us for 300 years. Genocide. Killed half the population of Ireland. Came to America to be left the hell alone. My French ancestors came here to be left the hell alone. My English ancestors, who were English Catholics, came here to be left the hell alone. Got here, immediately had to fight against the British for independence, then against George Washington in the Whiskey Rebellion, because we had this crazy idea that we were free at that point, could make whiskey and sell it without having to pay taxes and, regulate it. Yeah, lost that war. Then immediately again the Civil War, because there was an issue between slaveholders on the coast and really industrial interests up north. Most of the South had, fewer than 10% of the South even owned slaves. The Southerners were not fighting to preserve slavery. They were fighting because suddenly they were being invaded by people from up north. Again, just wanted to be left the hell alone. We can go through generation, World War I, World War II, boys drafted and sent off to war. They didn't want to be there. They wanted to be left the hell alone. Do you honestly think that something that happened in Hungary with the Black Hand and, Ferdinand and all that, it had any impact on somebody sitting in rural eastern North Carolina or the mountains? No. Again, we wanted to be left the hell alone. Stupid-ass president Woodrow Wilson goes and sends us into war. Then, again, Roosevelt does the same damn thing. They knew the Japanese were going to attack. He let it happen. Alliances between England and, against Germany shouldn't have had anything to do with us. Then we go through Korea and Vietnam and Afghanistan, and all we want is just to be left alone. And so you may ask, well, what are you doing in Iran right now? Donald Trump said to him, we'll work out a trading deal. You can do whatever you want. Stop killing your own people. We got an issue with that. But most of all, and stop sponsoring terrorism all over the world, which the Iranian government, the Islamic regime of Iran, has done since 1978. And they've attacked us many, many times. Many, many times. They've taken our people hostage. They've attacked barracks. Iran has been an aggressor from 1978 to this day. You can't have a nuclear weapon. Why can't you have a nuclear weapon? Because you're freaking insane. You think you're going to start an Armageddon which will cause the 12th Imam to arise from a well. No. You people, you can't have a nuclear weapon. You can do whatever else you want, but you can't have a nuclear weapon. They say we're going to have a nuclear weapon. People are saying, well, Israel's drawing us into this war. In this case, Iran's been attacking America since 1978. You leave us alone, we leave you alone. You don't leave us alone, that's the end of you. That's the Southern ethic. Like it or leave it. But hopefully I've made things understandable. Hopefully my listener in Palestine understands that I'm not pro-Palestinian. I'm not pro-Israel. I'm not anti-Palestinian. I'm not anti-Israel. I see things in a nuanced way. Hopefully my listeners who are now thinking, is Trump doing the right thing in Iran or not, understand at least some historical context. And hopefully, all my listeners in Australia and England and all that can understand the American perspective, especially in the South. Because we've had to fight our own government twice, Whiskey Rebellion and then the Civil War, for one reason only. We wanted to be left alone. In neither case, we were the aggressor. I mean, they'll say, well, South Carolina seceded. Yeah, South Carolina. They went to Fort Sumter, what was actually on John's Island or the Age Oak, and said, just like our grandfathers who wanted to get out of England, we want to get out of the United States. And Lincoln sent troops in and started shooting people, raping women, and burning farms, and killing every man, woman, and children, black and white, they could find. Sherman was thought to be demon-possessed by his own men. Grant was a homicidal, genocidal maniac. We just wanted to be left alone. And I think there are a lot of people in Palestine. I think there are a lot of people in Israel. I think there are a lot of people in Iran. I think there are a lot of people in China. I think there are a lot of people in Venezuela who just want to be left alone. Be treated fairly. Have a legal system that treats people equally. Not have to pay off criminals. Not have to do things that go against your conscience. There's like 5% of the population of this world that controls the other 95%. And most of that 95% just wants to be left alone. And where we can agree on that, we agree. We have shared humanity. We have shared commonality. I don't care what your race is. I don't care what your skin color is. I don't care what your religion is. When you go in and you don't leave people alone, you got a problem. Let me put it this way. The other day, I was going through some older things that I had inherited. I got my great-grandfather's stuff, born in 1890. His, what you would call EDC, his everyday carry. 38 caliber pistol, knife, blackjack, and a cane specifically designed for fighting. That is the culture I come from. You leave an Irishman alone, or you're going to lose your teeth, you're going to lose your life, more than likely. And I don't think there's any culture or people on the face of the earth that feels differently. That's actually, being Catholic is recognizing that all people on earth are made by God and are part of the same family and should really figure out how to get along. Anyway, and that's why the Pope's always opposed to war. You want to know why the Pope's always opposed to war? Because it goes against our brotherhood as Christians, or just as people made in God's image by God. Anyway, sometimes we have to fight, but it's never the best option. It's never the best option. But there's 5% of people that won't leave you alone, that bomb military barracks and take Americans hostage and shoot, what do they say, 40,000 of their own people for wanting to be free. And just remember, the Muslim Brotherhood is very closely aligned with Freemasonry. The Masonic Order and the Muslim Brotherhood have remarkably close ties. And oddly enough, whenever you see a communist revolution, you find Freemasons and members of the Muslim Brotherhood. And what are both of them absolutely dedicated to destroying? The Catholic Church. Freemasons are not allowed to even receive last rites. They have to take a vow not only renouncing the Catholic Church, but saying they will not even speak to a priest on their deathbed. And they take vows to destroy the Catholic Church. The Muslim Brotherhood also has vows against the Catholic Church. And oddly enough, every communist leader has been a member of one of those two groups, or both. Yeah, or both. So anyway, let's look at our herb for the week. We got through that. Now, let's talk about grapes. So, every variety of grape. This is Vitis species. Let me get a sip of water here. Every variety of grape has been used as food, wine, or medicine by people wherever it's grown. Grapes have been cultivated since the very beginning of agriculture. As soon as humans stopped following herds of wild animals and began to cultivate plants, grape cultivation was prioritized. You could make a very strong case that growing grapes is actually the original agriculture, because people like wine. Our ancestors had bad water. Water would make you sick. Fermented grape juice becomes wine, and it's one of the healthiest things you can drink, and no pathogen can exist in it. It is unknown whether, well, it's not unknown whether, let me put it this way. Wine production predates beer production by probably thousands of years. But mead may have been discovered first, and it could be that, bees tend to put their hives in hollow trees. One may have fallen in the storm, rainwater got into it, the honey and water mixed, it fermented, it became mead. Nobody actually knows how far mead production goes back. But we do know that wine production goes back at least to ancient Babylon and Samaria, and probably several thousand years before then. Okay, of course, wine's mentioned in the Bible many times. Beer, not so much. Beer probably began in Egypt, along the Nile, where they could grow abundant grain, but not really great for grape production. The river basin is not as good for grapes as it is for grain. So, did agriculture begin with the organized production of grain along the Nile, or the domestication of grapes? I would argue that it would be the domestication of grapes, because going back again 10,000 years ago, at least, there are evidence of cultivated grapes as opposed to wild grapes. People were growing grapes to make wine before they were growing grain to make bread, or, I don't know, mustard greens or lettuces for salad. I mean, literally, wine is our first human-produced food product. I think that would be accurate in saying. It certainly predates bread. The French have a saying that cooking begins with the breaking of an egg. I think that's, yeah, I think probably many thousands of years before that, someone took a piece of meat and decided they wanted it warm rather than cold and grilled it over a fire, obviously. So I don't think we could say that food production began with wine because our ancestors would have learned to eat cooked meat and food and vegetable food before they had wine. They probably discovered mead before they discovered wine and figured out that if water sweetened with honey could ferment, then grape juice could probably ferment. But I would say that the cultivation of plants for human consumption probably does begin with grapes. So, I mean, to me, that's interesting. There really should be just vast libraries of historical information on production of food crops, but well, grapes probably get about the biggest spot in the library, actually. I mean, they've just been that important to all people. Next would become grain. But anyway, so native to my region are the Vitis aestivalis, summer grape, Vitis baeliana, possum grape, Vitis floridiana, Florida grape, Vitis labrusca, the fox grape. That's an interesting one. I'll get back to that in a minute. Vitis rotundifolia, which is muscadine, and that also includes scuppernong. Scuppernong is a variety of muscadine that was developed in Whiteville, North Carolina, a town that used to exist called Vineland, by a Revolutionary War general. Wonderful, wonderful grapes. And the Vitis vulpina or frost grape. Now the fox grape, the labrusca, is that, yes, that does sound like Lambrusca. Yes, it is actually somewhat similar to the wild grapes of Italy. And you can make a nice sweet wine. If you've ever had a Lambrusca, it's just a good moderately sweet table wine. I mean, it's not like as sweet as a Muscat, but it's not far from it. It can be pretty sweet. Most of our wild grapes make a sweeter wine. Now, many varieties of grapes have been naturalized into North Carolina and all throughout America and Mexico and Argentina and Chile especially. But those are the European grapes. Oh, there's a word for them. Vinifera. Anyway, vinifera. Oh, gosh, it's not coming to me, the Latin. But those European grapes actually have a lot of trouble surviving in the Americas. There are various molds that can get to them, various fungi. There's specifically a variety of like cricket or grasshopper. But anyway, it will bore into the vines and just destroy them. So, like Thomas Jefferson and such, really, and Washington, they both really wanted to grow European wine grapes. They didn't have a lot of luck. Interestingly, though, in Virginia and Texas, they began to cross the European varieties and come up with hybrids that would grow well in America without having the diseases that the European grapes tend to suffer from. And of course, up around like Niagara Falls, New York, it's a little colder, and the European grapes did better there. So anyway, they did find pockets where they could grow. And these hybridizations came about, which is really important because late 1800s, around 1900, there was a huge blight in Europe that nearly wiped out all their grapes. So the American hybrids actually came in and replaced many of the ancient varieties of grapes in France and such. So, interesting history there. But medicinally, grapes have been used, well, forever. I mean, literally forever. Dioscorides wrote of several varieties of grapes. Gosh, I don't even know how many varieties of grapes. Here's one he called Ampellos leuci, taken for epilepsy. Believe it or not, yes. To dissolve inflammations, break abscesses, extract bones, like broken bone particles. There's an astringency to it. Um, Good for those bitten by vipers. I mean, I don't know what varieties he was actually talking about. Vitis nigra, he called Ampellos melania. Um, wow. He had a ton of uses for that as well. I mean, let me see if I can find some more modern, because, I mean, he literally gives us like 24 grapes. Now, of the ones that are more native to the Americas, Plants for Future actually does have some information. The summer grape, which we mentioned, says the leaves are hepatic, good for the liver. They're used in the treatment of the liver. Wilted leaves have been applied as a poultice to breast to draw away soreness after the birth of a child. An infusion of the bark has been used to treat urinary complaints. Fox grape, northern fox grape, leaves are hepatic, again, good for the liver. Used in the treatment of diarrhea, hepatitis, stomach aches, fever, headache, and thrush. Externally, the leaves are poultice and applied to sore breast, rheumatic joints, and headaches. Wilted leaves have been used as a poultice to the breast to draw away soreness after the birth of a child. Frost grape, another one we have, leaves hepatic, everything you just said about the others. Now, Culpeper talked about some of the more British grapes, but he really preferred French wine, oddly enough, and Madeira, of course, the wines from Spain and Portugal. So your ports, your sherries, your Madeiras, your Burgundies, and champagnes. So he did talk about some of the medicinal uses of grapes. Just don't do well in the English climate, but there are some wild grapes. Your fox grapes do fairly okay. But anyway, he said that the wines would help the stomach, help digestion, comfort the bowels, preventative against the plague. Very old use of wine is as against the plague. Been used at least since the Middle Ages for that reason. And of course, vinegars. You take wine and what's the name of that bacteria? Anyway, one of the bacteria that can turn wine, make it bad, actually turns it into vinegar. And it actually eats the alcohol and turns it into acid. Probably come to me in a minute. Then he talks about the uses of brandy. And, of course, brandy was what we used before vodka in making all our tinctures and such. So without wine and brandy, there wouldn't have been much herbal medicine at all. Because before 1400 or so, nearly every single herbal preparation was in wine. And then distillation became more common, and it began to make brandy, and we have tinctures. Miss Grieve talks a lot about the history, of course, of grapes, my gosh. But let's get to medicinal action uses. Grape sugar differs from other sugars chemically. It enters the circulation without the action of saliva. Interesting. Did not know that. But anyway, the leaves are astringent, used for hemorrhages and bleeding. The sap, excellent for weak eyes and specks on the cornea. St. Hildegard von Bingen also used the sap from grapevines for the exact same reason. Ripe grapes used for kidneys, increases flow of urine. Good for anemia, exhaustion. Dried grapes, raisins, demulcent. Nutritive. That actually means it helps with constipation. We're just going to go with that. Of course it does. Brother Aloysius said white wine stimulates the appetite. Frequently used in decoctions with herbs for the kidneys, stones, gravel. Red wine causes less headache than white wine because it has actually less sugar usually. And when taken in moderation, wine is generally invigorating, stimulating, good for digestion. However, immoderate use is very injurious and can cause stroke, paralysis, gout, rheumatism, and kidney disease. That's true. Wine is recommended for illnesses caused by weakness of indigestion, for convalescence. Fresh vine leaves are astringent and refreshing. Decoction used internally for dysentery, vomiting, and blood spitting. Sap from the vine, the wood, stimulates the appetite, beneficial in treatment of gravel and kidney stones, and a tonic and eye wash, especially for inflammation of the eyes. Now, For our native grapes, such as possum grape and summer grape, Cherokees used them for irregular urination and bad diarrhea. Pretty much every wild grape, that's exactly what they used it for. Or they ate it, or they actually, the Cherokees made wine before Europeans ever got here. Everybody did. Why is that? Well, it's because yeast actually forms on the skin of the grape. When you crush a grape, it almost immediately becomes wine. I had this debate with a Southern Baptist one time. Said, oh, the wine in the Bible was just grape juice. I said, well, no. Jesus lived in a hot desert climate. They had no pasteurization, no refrigeration. Yeast grow on the outside of the grape. The minute you crush it, it begins to turn sugar into alcohol. And most of the alcohol is made within the first 24 hours. When it does, it bubbles, which is why the Bible says that, new wine could burst old wineskins. And the Bible does talk about people getting drunk off of wine, so, you're full of crap any way you look at it. A Muslim would not give you that argument, by the way. A Baptist would. And another reason I often get along with Muslims better than I do Baptists. But anyway, I get along with everybody if they treat me all right. Botany Today says, medicinally, the tea of the grape leaves is reported to be helpful for the pancreas, the heart, and circulation. Leaves can be used as a poultice for blisters on the feet. Grapeseed extract from the seeds grown in Italy and France, that was vinifera, Venus vinifera, that's it, contains high circulation of antioxidants called gallic esters and proanthocyanidins. I've always had trouble with that one. We used to sell, when I worked at the vitamin store, we actually sold that, and I would have to proanthocyanide. It was just a ridiculous word to try to say. Their ability to fight free radicals is reportedly 20 times stronger than vitamin C and 50 times stronger than vitamin E. Peterson Field Guide says American Indians use leaf tea for diarrhea, hepatitis, stomach aches, thrush. Externally, poultice wilted leaves used for sore breasts also apply to rheumatism, headaches, and fevers. Other vitis species have been used similarly. Vines, when cut in the summer, yield a potable water, possibly purer than today's acid rainwater. Well, acid rain was a big deal in the 70s and 80s when they wrote that book. We'll get into that another day. But yes, you can actually survive off of the water that comes from grapevines. You can cut it and let it drip out, or you can take a fresh vine and put one end in dirty water and the other end slightly downhill from that end, and it will filter the water. You can make a very wonderful natural water filter from a wild grapevine. Always remember that. It could save your life. Now, warning, do not confuse grapes with Canada moonseed. They don't look all that alike, but if you really hadn't had any experience with wild grape, you might confuse it for Canada moonseed. We've actually talked about it before. It does have some medicinal uses, but it's very poisonous taken in any quantity. All right, y'all. Have a great week. Say prayers for everybody in this war and the war in Ukraine and Russia. Pray that God will protect all who are innocent and weak. Our troops, their troops who don't really have a choice in the matter. I mean, most soldiers do not have a choice. And pray that the war comes to an end soon and that people can be free and live in peace. And I mean that for the people of Israel and Iran and Palestine and Russia and Ukraine and everybody else. All we want is just to be left the hell alone. If you're a person that thinks you need to tell other people what to do at the point of a gun, you got a big problem. And you're the problem. You're part of the 5% that's a problem. The rest of us just want to be left alone. And frankly, I don't know why the rest of us as a group haven't put a stop to this kind of crap by now, but human nature is what it is. You have people who are going to take power because that's their desire in life. Other people want to be left alone, and those people that take power will either rule for good or bad, and the rest of us have to pay the price, and that's all there is to it. It's been that way for the entirety of human history and will be until the end of the world. There will always be wars and rumors of war, but we can pray for peace, we can work for peace, and that's all we can do. Sometimes, though, you do have to fight. And this is one of those times, unfortunately. Unfortunately, this is one of those times. We could not let the Ayatollah, the mullahs, whatever, get nuclear weapons. If they did, they were going to kill people. They said it. Death to America, death to Israel. They've been saying that every day since 1978. It's not a secret. If you haven't gotten it by now, I mean, come on. What's the old Maya Angelou quote? If someone tells you who they are, believe them. The old, what was his name, from Hiawassee, Georgia. It was a Democrat politician. I really liked him. He said, if you see a copperhead in the yard, you take a hoe and cut its head off. You don't hang around. Zell Miller. Poisonous snake, copperhead, cottonmouth, grab something and cut its head off. A hoe is usually the easiest thing to use. An axe will work fine. A machete, that's my preference. But you don't wait around for it to bite your kid. You don't wait around for it to bite you, or your dog for that matter. Poisonous snake in your yard, cut its head off. There's a poisonous snake that's been in Iran since 1978. It's called the Muslim Brotherhood. And hopefully people are starting to wake up to that. These are quasi-religious Nazis. Well, the Nazis had their own weird religion, pretty closely related to Aryanism, which is also related to Freemasonry. Okay, that's a conversation for another day. We will talk about that another day. You might want to hear it. You might just want to hear about herbs. Some people say just talk about herbs. For every one person I get that says, would you just shut up about world events and politics and religion and just talk about herbs, I get like hundreds others saying, that was enlightening. You said what I wanted to say. I've never thought about it that way, or I have been thinking about it that way. I love it. At some point you have to realize a lot of you, 100% of you come here for the herbal information. 90% of you listen to my show because you like listening to me talk. And that's okay. I'm good with that. I listened to Rush Limbaugh 3 hours a day, every day for 20 years. I loved listening to the man talk. I'm no Rush Limbaugh, but, I appreciate that you appreciate me. And when we disagree, hopefully we can still get along. Y'all have a great week, and I'll talk to you next time.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, do your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.